Shoulders, probably the most important muscle to get right if you're trying to actually feel big in the gym. If you're trying to like look big, it's probably the shoulders that you're gonna wanna focus on. And for me, over the years, I made a bunch of mistakes. So in this video, we're gonna go through the 5 mistakes that I made in terms of actually growing my shoulders. Now, I want to show you some before pictures just so you get some context. Okay, this is before. This is before. This is after. Okay, so this was about a year and a half, 2-year difference that I was able to make. I didn't cut down on this picture here, but on this one, I look fucking sad. It's actually horrible. So what I started doing is I started actually trying to lean out. I got this side profile of my shoulders, and this is the kind of after image of my shoulders. And I'll give you one more just so you get kind of the idea. This is the other side. So you can see I had a lot of front shoulder development, back rear shoulder development, and even side. Like it looks like where my tattoo is there. Like that actually is like more cap now. It's really cool. I really like that. I really like that a lot. So now let's talk about the mistakes. But before we get into that, actually, I want to share with you this one other image. Okay. Now this image here is how the delts are, right? There's a front, there's a side. I should do this shoulder. There's a front, there's a front, there's a side, and then there's the rear in the back there, okay? Now, it's really important to understand that because the mistake I made was I never trained all 3. It sounds so stupid, right? Like, you're, oh, what? How could you not do that? Well, honestly, I just never thought of it. I was like, well, if I do bench press, that's my front delts. And then if I do like lateral raises, just standing up, like that's my side delts. And then if I do like a back day, that's my rear delts, right? Wrong. So the first mistake that I made was not doing enough work. And specifically what I did to fix this was I would throw in like a specific day I would do shoulders. So I'd be like, hey, Tuesday, I don't care what else happens in the gym. Tuesday, I'm getting a crazy shoulder pump. I'm making sure that I do enough work on all 3 heads just in case I'm missing out on some gains there. Okay, that was the first thing that I did. And I specifically would focus on movements that were able to challenge the muscle in the stretch position because ding, 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 this is the second mistake I made. I would not try and do movements where in a stretched position, the muscle would be loaded. That sounds kind of technical, but hear me out. If you do front raises, right, and you just stand here like this, right, and you're like, I'm going to do this front raise. This is awesome. Well, the main part where the muscle's stretched is down here. But if you're holding a dumbbell, gravity would say you're not getting any weight. There's no tension there, right? So you'd actually want to lean back a little bit at least to make sure that there's actually tension hitting that front delt. And this was actually my experience with side delts. The most grievous offender was that I would just do standing lateral raises. I'd up the weight. I'd be like 25, 30 pounds. Like, let's go. And I'd try to do it like that. And then what I found is that if I actually so I made gravity make sense, right? Because again, you're standing here. This is the most stretched position of that muscle, but you're not getting any tension. There's no weight on it because the weight is aiming down, right? So if you lean a little bit, and I started leaning about like this on an incline bench, I'd actually find that, now I get a full range of motion in that stretched position. Dude, same thing with rear delts, right? Same with rear delts. You might have seen like a pec deck machine and you reverse it so you go like this. Well, if this is the stretched position, right, you do get some tension there, but your rear delt could go farther, right? This is all rear delt. So I started doing cables and stuff, cable work like this, where I'd actually come down, and I started feeling it way more in those areas. So first thing you'd want to do is actually have a dedicated shoulder day. Make sure you're hitting all 3 heads individually. Second, challenge the muscle in the stretched position. And this would lead you into the third, which is don't use a lot of weight. It sounds crazy, right? Like, the shoulders are actually one of the larger upper body muscles because it wraps all the way around. But the thing is that if you're doing lateral raises like this and you got 30s, it's very difficult, unless you're really strong, but it's really difficult to lower that weight. And even though you're not in a stretch position, so like this, it's really difficult to lower and control that weight. So instead of doing 30s for lateral raises or 25s, I actually dialed it down to 12 pounds. When I first started, I did 8 pounds. And I was like, I don't think that's going to work, bro. 8 pounds? What am I, a woman? Like, am I in Pilates right now? But what I actually found was doing it that way was insane because I was like, oh my God, gravity is working against me. So I'm getting all the weight on the muscle I need to when it's the most exposed, meaning it's stretched, right? And now if I'm doing 15, 20 reps of that, it's brutal. So at this point, I can do 15 pounds, but I only get like 10 reps, 11 reps in. I'd prefer to go higher, 15 to 20 reps for shoulder movements. So I'm more in like that 12-pound range. And it's so funny because I go to the gym, I see dudes, like kids in high school, whatever, and they're coming in and they're like, yo. And I'm just like, bro, I'm sitting here, and I'll admit, it looks kind of weird. It's not like I got my ass up. I'm like, ooh. But anyways, it's a weird movement, but it's really so good. I've never felt like a shoulder pump the way I have when I do that movement specifically. And now the fourth mistake is not training the muscle enough. Okay, so what I found is that any muscle that's a bit smaller, so I'm not talking like your quads and hamstrings and stuff, but the smaller your muscles are, the more you can train it because you have actually less muscle tissue to repair your body. So if you're like a new lifter, you can lift a lot because your body's like, I don't got a lot of muscle on. But as you get bigger, it actually takes your muscles more time to recover. But these smaller muscles take less time. So if you're looking at doing your, side delts specifically, if you're trying to like look wide, and like look wide from the side, that's the side delt. So I actually started doing this instead of just like on the shoulder day, I would do it at arms, my arm day, which is Friday. So I do it then, and I might even do it if I'm feeling a little freaky on a Wednesday, leg day. Ugh, brutal. And that one I would do it at the beginning of the workout because it's not that tiring. And even sometimes Saturday. But what I will say is the order of the exercise you do does matter. So if your main goal is like, hey, look, I'm trying to look wide, you want to, any day you're going to do shoulder movements, do that first, especially the side delts, because it doesn't take a lot of energy out of you, so it doesn't fatigue you for the rest of your exercises coming, like if you've got a bench press or something, or arm movements. But what it also does is it allows you to really not half-ass it at the end of the workout. Because one of the biggest mistakes I made was that I would throw shoulders in at the end as like a finisher move. Like, oh yeah, like shoulders don't matter. What I'm come to realize is that shoulders are probably the most important muscle if you're trying to actually look wide, if you're trying to look big, if you're trying to have a better like V taper physique. Like, it's so crazy. If you focus on this part, like it's almost like a V is like a triangle, right? So it's like this. But the biggest gap, the biggest width, the wideness is at these angles, right? This top portion of the V, and that's your shoulders. So if you're like this, if that's your V right now, if you just did this, you would look way wider, right? Like that's the secret. It's not the arms. It's not these lateral things. It's not the arms necessarily. I mean, that plays a part, but I would say shoulders is the most important. Second, I would try to develop the chest a lot. That like really ups your stature. And then your arms is, if you're trying to get as wide as possible. But those are the mistakes that I made. I hope that you learned something from this video and you take something that I've said and use it. If you have any questions for me, we have a link to our community down below. It's called Future Jacked Grandpas. It's for people who are trying to get jacked now, but stay jacked as they get older, stay able as they get older, and become really like the main character. Like the main person they see in their head is like, what's the ideal version of me? Those are the people that we want in the group. So if you want to go join that, click the link in the description or the first comment. And see you in the next one.